Ano ba itong new test in our lives? Well, it's not new test, no? This has been used noon pang unang panahon. Hindi pa tayo pinapanganak. Siguro pati mama natin hindi pa pinapanganak. Parents natin. Itong test na to is ginagamit. And maybe ito yung sa mga pinaka-important na test as food tech, no? As food tech students or as food technologists. Ito yung isa sa mga gagamitin ninyong test. Yung tinatawag natin t-test or the dependent samples. T-test pa rin siya, pero unlike doon sa t-test na discuss natin, is to I for dependent samples. So let's try to review. Ano ba yung dependent samples na idea? You can chat it or you can answer. Yes. Si Carl, si Gelato. Gelato, ano ba yung dependent sample? Pwede ka magbigay ng example. Pwede ka magbigay ng isang scenario na dependent siya. Gelato. Andiyan ba si Gelato? Okay. So, can you give me an example of that? Na mag-depend ang sample 1 sa sample 2. Okay. Very good. So, meron tayong, gusto ko sa food tech na example. Food tech na example. Sa food tech. Na related sa food tech, maisip ninyo na pwede na to. Maingon nga, ay, dependent sample din sila. Sige, at least naka-answer si Gelato. Lain na po, si ano na po itong pansiron? Si EJ Katubig. EJ Katubig. Yes. Try to think of an example sa food tech, no? Na masabi niyo na, ito siya is dependent po siya. Sige daw. Okay, kung lami. Tama, sensory evaluation niya. So, ano yung mga sample niyo dyan? Yung evaluators, no? Of course, yung sample niyo dyan is yung mga taste, yung kukunin niyo kasing data is, di ba, parang, ano yan siya, rate yan siya, tama ba? Yung sensory, yung rate, kung subay lami. Basta lami siya, i-rate lang siya. 1, way lami. Wala yung lami, Jud. 5 is lami. Lami kayo. So, i-rate ninyo siya. And then, dapat, kinsa to ang rater sa first, siya po ang rater sa second sample. No? Kasi possible na ang mga rater natin is, kasi possible, iba-iba yung panlasa ng mga raters. No? Yung first lang talaga, yung first, possible na baka sa isang group, yung panlasa nila ay iba lang compared sa normal na tao. Masarap sa kanila yung hindi masarap. sa ibang tao. So possible yan. So what we can do is we try to make it na dependent para yung ma-maintain yung reliability ng ng rating. Okay? So kung it's not yung yung the way na pag-mesh, the way yung tawag dyan. We are not measuring yung individual na taste niya, but we are measuring that taste of that individual with reference to the cookies. Okay? Kaya siya, natawag natin na dependent samples. Okay, so how do we deal with dependent sample? So idea is very easy, no? So example dyan, itong boyfriend ni Erica, no, dito. So picture niya sa picture niya. Assume na natin Erica, boyfriend mo yan. Okay? So gumamit siya ng sabon, no? Iwan kung sabon, but hindi naman siguro sabon. Nagpaano siya, let's try the experiment natin is magaling ba yung yung cosmetic surgeon pagpaganda. So we always base that sa before and after. Kasi kung ilagay natin dito is pogi yung mga napili natin before. Tapos yung sa isang group, tapos second group is mga pangit pala. Hindi natin sila ma-compare kung may improvement ba, no, sa before and after. So that's why we use a dependent sample para ma-compare natin ang before and after. Tama? Same din dito sa hair grower. Okay? So kung hindi to dependent, ang possibility is yung mapili natin sa before is okay naman pala mga buhok nila. Tapos i-compare natin sa after na okay din naman palang hair ng isang group. So hindi natin malaman kung may improvement ba is due to the hair grower or hindi lang siya it's not only because may individual differences, but the difference can be ascribed to the hair grower. Okay? So ganyan yung idea ng dependent sample. Okay, so another example is a medical researcher wants to see whether a drug to na yung gamot, hindi yung mga illegal drugs. So whether a drug will affect the reaction time of its users. So the idea is you measure before the drug is you measure the reaction time of a group of users before you administer the drug, and then you give the drug, and then for the same set of user, you measure again the reaction time. So that is after the drug. So you need to compare the before and after for the same user para malaman natin kung may binigay ba ng difference drug. Kung hindi natin ito i-dependent samples, ang mangyari is kung dalawang group talaga na independent, possible na yung group 1 is talagang mga mabibilis lang sila or mahina lang sila. No? And then, ang group 2 naman natin is mahihina. Kasi may iba-iba naman talaga tayo ng reaction time. Irong iba, mayroon tinatawag na late reaction. No? Yung iba naman, mabilis na OA naman masyado makareact. Mabilis mag-react. You know? So, we need to account for that difference. And the only way to account for that difference is to have this dependent sample. So, we measure the difference in the reaction time on the same user, on the same individual. Yeah? Okay. Sa design naman of UCAP preparation course to help students raise their test scores, so if we want to determine the effectiveness of the UCAP preparation course, we need to what? We need to identify, we need to measure the test score before the UCAP preparation and then after. Of course, this is just mock, ano to siya, UCAP, right? Kasi um, there's only one chance for you to take the UCAP. Hindi na siya pwedeng ulitin. But let's say that this is like sort of UCAP. Does it improve your test scores? So what you can do is to maybe administer a test that is uh, quite the same as the actual UCAT before, and then you now subject the users or the individuals to the UCAT preparation course, and then after that measure the test score, and then the difference you compute. So is the difference due to the UCAT or is just because that the individual it can be accounted to other differences or other factors? The only way to control for that is to make the samples independent for the terms. Dependent pala for the terms. Okay, so another third example is yung subjects are matched according to some variable. So it does not need to be the same individual, no? It does not need to be the same person, no? Ang kailangan lang is that more or less equal or more or less equal yung na-compare natin na subject before or from the first group to the second group. Kasi ang possible case niyan, like for example, if we want to, ang tawag actually doon is controlling variable. So the controlling variable sorts of an equalizer between the two samples. Okay? So for example, ulitin natin ang number 2, yung UCAP preparation. So kung ang sample natin sa first is puro matatalino, dapat din yung sample din natin sa second is matatalino din, about the same IQ as the before and after. So hindi nagbago yung IQ. Pero nagbago yung kung may pagbabago man na brought ang UCAP preparation. Okay? So yan yung natawag nating controlling variables. It does not need to be the same individual, like exactly the same, like kung si Erica, first Erica din sa no, it does not need to be that. I-make sure lang natin na pareha yung characteristic. Na sa tingin natin could affect the outcome of the experiment. Okay. So same thing, meron tayong two-tailed, so equal yan siya. Merong left-tailed, less than, and right-tailed, greater than. Assumptions for the t-test for 2 means when the samples are dependent. So sample are random, sample are dependent, and sample size are less than 30. The population must be normally or approximately normally distributed. And the formula is very easy. It still follows the format, no, ng mga ibang formula. Yun pa di nawawala. Always the same yan siya. X and di yan nawawala. Always yan. Because this is just transformation. Okay. So what is this? And what is this? So notice na SD na ang ano niya. Hindi lang S but SD. And this one is D rather than X. Okay. So what is that? Is actually the D bar is just the mean of the differences. And the SD is the standard error of the differences. And the degree of freedom is n minus 1. So paano yan siya? So the differences is actually measured kasi dependent siya. So pwede nating ma-pair. Tama? For example, if this is the first observation, second, third, fourth, so on and so forth. And this is the after, let us say the after for the second group, x prime 1, x prime 2, x prime 3, and x prime 4. Now, if we subtract it, minus yan, it's now the D1. Okay? The D. Ito actually yung mga difference. Okay? Yan sila yung mga difference. So, kung isa mo yan siya, according mo ang average ng mga difference, yan yung D bar. Same here, we deal with the differences rather than the actual or the observed value. Hindi yung observe ang i-deal natin, but we will deal with the differences. And these are the D's. Okay? That's the idea. Okay? So let's have an example. Hindi pa pala. Procedure muna tayo. So find the difference first. So yan. And then, bakit find? Feed. But find the differences, the mean. So after you compute the differences, you just compute the mean. And then you need to square so that you will find the standard deviation. And then find the test value using the formula. So once you have this, it's now easy to find the t. And then we just need to look at the table to determine the criticality.